Have you ever taken a guess at how many stars there are here in space? Well, something really cool about the stars is that they are a reminder that God keeps His promises. You see, a long time ago, our maybe even 100 times great-grandfather Abraham was a good man who owned lots of sheep and cattle. He lived with his wife Sarai, but they didn't have any children. One day, God promised Abraham that He was going to bless him by giving him a new land and a family that he would make great. Abraham believed God and knew that he could trust God's promise. Even though Abraham was 75 years old and the new land was far away, he loaded up every single thing he owned, including his wife and his nephew Lot, and they traveled until they came to the land that God was giving him. Many years later, Abraham was resting in his tent when God made another promise to him. He took Abraham out beneath the starry sky. "Look up at the stars in the sky," God said. "You will have a son. He will have children, and his children will have children, and they will have more children, and one day they will be as many as the stars in the sky." Abraham couldn't believe it and said, "How can this be? I am old." But God had made a promise to Abraham. God promised Abraham that he would have children, and from him a great nation would come. God promised that they would live in the land that God had given them. And God promised that because of Abraham, all people on earth would be blessed. And God is a promise keeper. Abraham's family did grow during the time he lived on earth. Abraham's children were having children, and so on and so forth. And now here we are, years away, and God's promise to Abraham is still true. God's people who descended from Abraham are still alive today. And the stars that we see help us remember that God is a promise keeper. It's out of this world to think that we are still a part of Abraham's big family. The God who made a promise that was true in the past for Abraham is true in the present for us, and will even be true in the future, because God is a promise keeper.